Issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice. A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
On Israel's war against Hamas, Senator Bernie Sanders faces a backlash from the left. Some progressive activists are deeply disappointed in the Vermont senator, an icon of their movement, for failing to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. And Henry Kissinger, a statesman and celebrity diplomat who wielded unparalleled power over U.S. foreign policy throughout the administrations of Presidents Richard M. Nixon and Gerald Ford, and who for decades afterwards was a consultant and writer who proffered opinions that shaped global politics and business, died on November 29th at his home in Connecticut. He was 100 years old. Speaking at the 2023 Deal Book Summit in New York, yesterday, Elon Musk, the owner of social media site X, formerly known as Twitter, scoffed at advertisers leaving the platform because of anti-Semitic posts he amplified there. If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, said Musk, blackmail me with money, go F yourself. Go F yourself. It's that clear. All the words of Elon Musk as he singled out Disney CEO Bob Iger in the audience, saying, "Hi, Bob." Ron DeSantis of Florida and Gavin Newsom of California, two relatively youthful and ambitious governors, adept at seeking and finding the spotlight, will square off tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, in a nationally televised debate in Georgia. This is in a suburb outside of Atlanta. This is being hosted by Sean Hannity of Fox News. Gavin Newsom has made no secret of the fact that he wants to be a contender for the Democratic Party in the 2028 presidential election. Now, while some contenders are quietly laying the groundwork for the future, this second-term governor has been more of an attention-seeking missile darting across the country and the world stage as he courts a broad array of Democratic constituencies who could be helpful in a future presidential run. And Secretary of State Antony Blinken met in Israel today with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as part of a diplomatic push by the Biden administration to extend a tenuous truce in Gaza and try to exert some influence over the next phase of Israel's military offensive. On his third swing through the Middle East since the October 7th Hamas-led attack on Israel, Blinken planned to see other senior Israeli officials and visit the Israeli-occupied West Bank. And in a memoir to be published next week, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney described how Republicans berated her, how her family lost friends, and how she forged an unusual alliance with Nancy Pelosi. But beyond its top-line arguments, the book offers a rare peek inside the Republican cloakroom at what Ms. Cheney, former GOP representative from Wyoming, heard from her colleagues about, quote, the Orange Jesus, quote, as one called Donald Trump. The memoir, Oath and Honor, arrives on bookshelves just as Trump is poised to reclaim the Republican presidential nomination in primaries beginning in just a few weeks. And Kenneth Chesebro, one of former President Donald Trump's co-defendants in the Georgia election interference case, is planning to meet with investigators in Arizona and Nevada, where similar probes are underway. Chesebro, who pleaded guilty in the Georgia case to a single felony count of participating in a conspiracy to file false documents, had been charged primarily related to his 2020 role in organizing states of pro-Trump electors. These electors met and voted in 7 states where Biden had won, actions that they hope would allow Congress to award those states electoral votes to Trump on January 6, 2021. This is Areva Martin in Real Time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I am joined by Eric K. Ward. He's Executive Vice President of Race Forward, and Dr. Calvin John Smiley. He's the author of Purgatory Citizenship, Reentry, Race, and Abolition, And he's going to be adding 2 new book titles to his name, as he has a couple of new books coming out both next year and the year after that. So congratulations to Dr. Calvin John Smiley. Always a pleasure to have both of these gentlemen join me. And in hour 2, you know what we do. We go deep, we dig behind the headlines, and we bring you those stories that people are talking about. Today, we're talking about hate crimes. There's been a lot of attention paid to hate crimes involving, anti-Semitic statements and other kinds of things that demonstrate anti-Semitism, as well as Islamic phobia, related to the Hamas-Israel war, the crises that's happening in the Middle East. We've heard a lot about Jewish students and Muslim students who've been attacked. But one of the most pervasive and prevalent forms of hate that happens in this country pretty much every day is hate towards Black folks. Yes, and in some ways it's so pervasive and so prevalent, it's not often given the kind of media attention that you would think that it deserves. And we want to do that today. We want to lift up a story, a very horrifying story of a 15-year-old Kansas City high school girl who was attacked, African-American teenage girl, student at a high school, who was attacked by a white kid. At her school, who physically assaulted her using the N-word, caught on videotape. And some unusual things happened after this young Black girl was attacked. Number one, she was suspended. So we're going to bring you one of the reporters from Kansas City who broke this story. He's going to join us, as well as a professor of Black history, to help us understand why the use of the N-word and hate towards Black folks continues to be so pervasive and in some ways so underreported. So stick around for hour 2. But before I bring on my guests, here's what I'm thinking about in real time. I want to give a big shout out to the city of Fort Worth, Texas. That city stepped up and did the right thing. And this is in relationship to a civil lawsuit settlement. This lawsuit involved a police shooting of a 29-year-old African-American woman, Atiana Jefferson. This happened in 2019. Miss Jefferson was in her home. She was babysitting her nephew named Zion Carr at the time. Zion was just 11 years old. A neighbor called the police because they had some concerns that Miss Jefferson's door was kind of opened. Now, we later learned that Miss Jefferson had opened her door to just let the air into her home. The police came, and for some reason, using a really super amount of force and aggression, ended up shooting and killing Miss Jefferson, who was just in her home playing a video game with her 11-year-old nephew, who she was babysitting. So you can imagine the tragedy, the trauma that little 11-year-old Zion Carr had to experience as he witnessed his aunt, who he loved dearly, be shot and killed in front of his face. I mean, they're sitting at home, minding their business in their own home, the confines of their homes, only to have police, push through their door and shoot and kill his very, very innocent aunt. And then little 11-year-old Zion had to go to court because these police officers were charged, and one of them actually was convicted and is now serving an 11-year sentence in jail, which we're so grateful that there was swift action taken by the police in this case in terms of holding those police officers accountable. So Zion's mom filed a lawsuit against the city for the emotional trauma and the emotional distress that little Zion suffered as he watched his aunt die. Sadly, Zion's mom then died of natural causes, something related to her heart or a heart condition. So here is Zion, who has lost his mother to a heart condition, lost his aunt to brutal police violence, and rather than put him through another brutal trial, the city of Fort Worth stepped up and settled his lawsuit, the lawsuit that had been filed by his mom before she passed. And they are going to pay $3.5 million to Zion. And they're going to structure it. And this is commonly done in these kinds of civil rights cases where there's an out-of-court settlement. They do what's called a structured settlement. So Zion and whoever his guardian is now will get money up until the time he's 18, money to take care of him since his mom is now dead. And some of the money was set aside for a college fund to make make sure that Zion is incentivized to go to college, and all the money is there to pay for his college career. And then there's even money beyond college. So Zion is going to be set. I mean, in terms financially, nothing will bring back his aunt. Nothing's going to bring back his mom. Nothing is going to erase that memory of watching his beloved aunt be shot and killed in his very presence. But at least now he has some financial resources for the kind of mental health counseling and other kinds of interventions that he'll need to recover emotionally. And he'll know that his basic necessities, his housing, his transportation, his college tuition, all of those things are now going to be funded as a result of this settlement. And I was really happy in reading this story to read that the family's lawyers, the city, they were all very pleased with this outcome, pleased with the amount, pleased with the way the funds are structured so nobody can run through the money won't disappear. It won't be like the lottery. You know, we hear those horrible stories of people winning big payouts from the lottery and then they're broke the next day. This money is structured in a way that will provide for Zion for the rest of his life. So thank you, Fort Worth, for stepping up and doing the right thing. And Zion, our prayers are with you as you continue on your journey. Stay with us when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
We are back, and in this hour, we are tracking today's breaking news with Eric Ward. He's the Executive Vice President of Race Forward, and Dr. Calvin John Smiley. He is a professor at New York University and author of Purgatory: Citizenship, Reentry, Race, and Abolition. He also has a new book coming out next year. I will be telling you more about that, and hopefully have him back on the show to talk about that new project. But thank you so much, Eric, and thank you, Dr. Smiley, for joining. I want to start off with Liz Cheney's, her book. I didn't read the full title of the book. The book is called Oath and Honor, a Memoir and a Warning. Let's focus on that part, Dr. Smiley, a warning. Liz Cheney is giving the world a warning in her new memoir. What do you make of Liz and her new project?
Yeah, I think it's really telling based on what we saw happen to her when she was seen as challenging Trump's administration in his last year and a half, and how much her own party had turned their back on her. And it reminded me of a post that I saw that she put on Twitter during the height of the COVID pandemic, where she had an image of her father, Dick Cheney, wearing a mask and his cowboy hat and encouraging folks to be vaccinated. And the comment section was just outright atrocious. And I was very much taken aback by that, saying, here is this guy who, I very much, as I was growing up, saw as the kind of most right-wing politician to date, and even in my eyes and many other folks' eyes, a war criminal himself, but being berated by his own party. So it's not actually shocking to hear her exposing the type of things that we didn't see, because, it's always worse what we don't see. So they were showing us ugliness in public. So I have to imagine the things that we weren't seeing behind closed doors were even worse. So, I applaud her for taking that stand and exposing that, because it's important.
It's interesting, Eric, because Liz Cheney was kind of following the GOP lead when Trump was first elected. It looks like things really turned for her, the January 6th insurrection and the way Republicans responded to that initially, Kevin McCarthy and many of them, outright lambasting Trump, but then doing an about face. We're always happy, I guess, when folks like Liz Cheney come forward and tell us the real deal. Like, what's the story in the courtroom? What are folks really calling Trump? Do Republicans really like him? But you always have to ask, where were these people before he was elected? And where were they once they saw up front and, close how he was performing in the job? What are your thoughts about this book and her now giving us all of these damning details?
Hindsight is always easier. I think it's important for us to remember Liz Cheney is a conservative and was an active leader in the most hardest core of the Republican Party, supported Donald Trump. But as we read in the book, as we start leading up into the election cycle, we see that growing concern from Liz Cheney. And in the book itself, she outlines on January 6th, before this insurrection takes place that injures hundreds of law enforcement and leads to the arrest and now conviction of dozens of people involved in this insurrection. She describes the scene in the cloakroom of the House, where members of the GOP were encouraged to sign their names on electoral objection sheet. Basically, it was lined up on the table, one for each state. What she witnessed, in her opinion, was an attempted theft of the U.S. elections. And we know following that, she decides to sacrifice her political career by leading as one of the chairs of the January 6th investigation committee. She was seeking specifically, right, to make the case that criminal charges should be brought against Donald Trump as part of an attempt to overthrow the United States through undercutting the elections. I think what Liz Cheney then faces is attack from her own party, from folks she saw as principled conservatives. She found out that they were nothing more than political hacks. And in her book, she spends a lot of time blasting the GOP as nothing more than enablers of those who are seeking to undercut democracy. At the end of the day, Liz Cheney is principally a conservative, on many issues that I would not agree with her with. But principally, she believes that her ideas of what the United States should look like are not more important than the process of inclusive democracy that Black people actually struggle to bring about in this country. I think we should hold Liz Cheney up for that fact, that she was willing to sacrifice her career to stand by the primary principle of one person, one vote in this country, and oppose to stolen elections.
And you're right, Eric. She did lose her career. Her career in Congress was ended because of the principled stance that she took. Not likely that she could win another election. Obviously, as a member of the GOP, there are some startling revelations in this book. Professor Smiley, see, we're not likely to buy the book because we're not likely to want to help Liz Cheney in that way, although we are going to applaud her for coming forward. But there's a passage that, has been revealed in Vanity Fair that really just is mind-boggling to me. Eric talked about those sheets that were lined up in the Coke room where everyone was just supposed to put their name on it. One of the congressmen, a Republican from Tennessee named Mark Green, as he is signing these fake documents to suggest that, the electors that have been already assigned to Biden should somehow go over to Trump. She writes that as Green moved down the line, signing his name to the pieces of paper, Green said sheepishly to no one in particular, quote, "the things we do for the orange Jesus," quote. That's not a comment, Professor Smiley, you would expect. Well, that's not the conduct of a grown man that's elected to represent the people of Tennessee. He's signing his name to something, not because it's the right thing to do for the country or for his constituents, but for what he's calling the orange Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, it's a page out of the Emperor in New Clothes, where people are not going to question that leadership if they feel like it's going to have a backlash on their career, their future opportunities, because Liz Cheney, as we just said, whether we like her or not, sacrificed her career in Congress. And what that means for her future careers in the private sector, or the fact that her family already had loads of money and she probably never needs to work, is a different conversation. But, there's always been this kind of grumbling that we've heard that there were people who probably disagreed with Trump on many stances, or didn't like things that he was saying, but they weren't going to challenge his power because they saw the adverse effects that it had on their career, and how he has that kind of very lethal tongue, especially in the days of Twitter, when he could just go on there and at you and, sick his followers on you. And, who wants to go through that? So it's a funny, I hate to say it's a funny thing to hear, his own party calling him this orange Jesus, but also not surprising either.
What would have happened, Eric, had Liz told us all of these things? I can't help but put her somewhat in the category of others who had all of this inside information about Trump and chose not to reveal it until they got themselves a multi-million-dollar, seven-figure book deal. She makes comments to say Kevin McCarthy told her 2 days after the January 6th insurrection that he talked to Trump, and Trump acknowledged that he had lost, but he needed time to grieve. He needed time to get there. And then 2 days later, he goes on Fox and says, no, Trump legitimately won the election. I just wonder what might have happened had Liz come forward with some of these revelations, not in a book, but, to the American people as they were happening in real time.
Yes, I mean, certainly this information would have been helpful going into the elections, right? There are clearly signs that there is an attempt to disregard the election results before Election Day even happens. And what we see at the end of the day is that Liz Cheney, I think, was caught off guard. I think, quite honestly, she did not believe that the GOP would completely bend to the will of Donald Trump if he stepped outside the rule of law. One of the things we know about Liz Cheney is the idea of the rule of law is a very significant principle for her. Would this have been helpful? Absolutely. And we should remember that Liz Cheney did call for more hearings and investigations. We should know that if Liz Cheney had not been unelected by her Republican Party, who turned their backs on her and the rule of law, it is likely we would have heard more of these stories. But yes, earlier to the American public, I think would have gone a long way from undercutting the big lie by Donald Trump. Not only undercutting that lie, but saving lives and saving people from physical harm. Donald Trump and Trumpism used that big lie to sow political violence in communities around the country post January 6th, and it still continues. I think the lesson from this book is that we need political leaders to be more loyal to democracy and their principles than their political party.
No, absolutely. And it'd be interesting to see if what we may learn, what lessons from this book may actually get put into practice, because there's still so many other folks who were part of that Donald Trump 2016 or part of Donald Trump's administration who still have not come forward to tell us all of the horrifying things that we probably can imagine, the most horrifying things that we can imagine that happened while he was president. We've heard, some of his former aides, some of his former cabinet members have spoken out, but I just can't, it's hard to wrap your arms around someone like Liz Cheney, even though she did step up. You're right. She called for investigation. She was, really, really impressive during the hearing. She was an important part of those hearings, a leadership role. But she had a lot of this information. And it seems like to me that but for January 6th, folks would have been willing to allow Donald Trump to continue in the way that he has, in the dangerous way. And we only need look at Elon Musk at that summit yesterday in New York to see what happens to these kind of authoritarian type individuals when they are left unchecked. I mean, Elon Musk went on a 90-minute rant. He was allowed to do so at this conference, using all kind of profanity, just exhibiting this arrogant hubris, and they allowed him to do it. So this unchecked arrogance of white men is dangerous, and Elon Musk and Donald Trump continue to demonstrate that. When we come forward, we'll talk more about that summit, when the F-bombs dropped by Elon Musk, and some breaking news that Israel had the blueprint from Hamas of the attack on October 7th, and they dismissed it as being aspirational. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union, weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580, weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time, that's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities and sports figures, elected leaders and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
We boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again.
We are breaking down today's trending news with Eric Ward, Executive Vice President of Race Forward, and Dr. Calvin John Smiley. He is the author of Purgatory, Citizenship, Reentry, Race, and Abolition, and he has a couple of new books coming out. We'll be introducing you to those books very soon. Also, in hour 2, we're talking about a tragic story involving a 15-year-old Black student at a school in Kansas City who is attacked on video by her white classmate who is just screaming the N-word. not getting a lot of media attention. So we wanted to make sure that right here on KBLA, we bring this story to the forefront, because hate against Black folks in this country is still and has always been and continues to be a thing. And it's up to us to make sure that we never lose sight of that, and that we elevate these stories, and that folks understand that we continue as African Americans in this country to suffer from so much anti-Blackness. And it doesn't start once you're, in the workplace. It starts as early as school. So we're going to be talking to a reporter who broke that story in Kansas City, as well as a Black history professor, about the N-word and why it still hurts so much. All right, Eric, want to talking about profanity. Elon Musk is on this huge stage yesterday, given this huge platform. He goes on a 90-minute rant. 90. I mean, like, who gets interviewed for 90 minutes, right? And he's dropping F-bombs all over the place. He is just as arrogant and obnoxious as anyone can be. What do you make of this guy? And why did they give him 90 minutes to spread that kind of vitriol?
They gave him, so I'll back up, right? Elon Musk speaking at the 2023, I think it's the Deal Book Summit in New York on Wednesday, is asked a question about the advertisers who have left his site, Disney, Apple, over anti-Semitic statements that he has lifted up or reinforced on the media site formerly known as Twitter. And he responds by using the F word. He gives an apology, a kind of apology, I'll say, around some of his anti-Semitic activity, but then doubles down on by using the F word against advertisers. This is performance, and this is the challenge the Black community must face with in America that is doubling down on bigotry and authoritarianism. Again, is that too many in the media, too many in liberal society love the performance. They don't understand the real world consequences that others actually have to live with from the antics of Elon Musk. It's for them an entertaining debate, and for communities that are suffering under hate crimes and violence and systemic discrimination, Elon Musk is a danger. And we're seeing this around his leaning into conspiratorial ideas involving Jews. And it's not new. We should remember that soon after Elon Musk takes over Twitter, he begins to use X as a platform to lift up individuals who have ties to white nationalism, who promote QAnon theories. He sometimes quoted Nazis, right? He's had chummy exchanges with avowed bigots. This is Elon Musk. He is not part of civil society. He is someone who is seeking to undercut civil society and put vulnerable communities at greater risk.
Yeah, what did you make of it, Dr. Smiley? Again, it's kind of hard to imagine someone being as arrogant as Elon Musk. Yeah, he's a billionaire times 100. He's done a lot. He owns a bunch of companies, but he tells Disney, "I don't care. Any other advertiser, take your money. You're not going to quote unquote blackmail me with money." And clearly, this was not about blackmail.
Yeah, and to just kind of echo some of what our colleague said here, these types of reservations when he bought Twitter were already there, right? People worried about the floodgates being open to these kind of more fringe kind of conspiratorial ideas, opening up to white supremacy, firing lots of the kind of coders and people who were there to kind of stopgate and regulate those types of actions that were being taken, removing the blue check mark. And then if you just paid the fee, you could get the blue check mark, which then kind of throws off the algorithm of, what we've kind of traditionally seen as kind of legitimate news sources or legitimate places to get information. Now, anyone with $8, whatever it is, to spare can have a blue check mark, and if you also if you have people who are not kind of tech savvy or digital literate, they don't really know or can't really decipher those differences. But I mean, I think you're both 100% correct, right? This is an arrogant billionaire. He is the supervillain, right? We've watched these types of things in our Marvel and DC comics, but he is the Lex Luthor. He is that, that image, and I think he likes it, and I think he really relishes in it, because part of it is it's the same kind of play from the playbook of Donald Trump, where he says things that are going to spark controversy, become clickbait, and then have folks like us talking about him. And
ultimate provocateur. So he'll probably run for president next.
And we might even change the rules to allow him to do it, right? I remember back when Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor of California, there was some grumblings about maybe we should change that rule. But not to digress. But I think, and especially in this moment of where we see both heightened forms of anti-Semitism, heightened forms of Islamophobia because of what's happening in Palestine and Israel, this is a moment where platforms like Twitter really need to step up the level of curbing disinformation, right? We saw last week Elon Musk had a tour with Netanyahu, right? On one hand, he's claiming he's supporting something, but on the other hand, he's allowing these other things to happen. So, which is it? And I think that's the point of supervillains, is that they thrive on chaos, right? If we think about the Joker, we don't really know what the Joker's end goal is. The through line is chaos. And so someone like an Elon Musk thrives on chaos. And, like we said, he's worth more money than anyone. And how do we rein that in if it's not going to be, government regulators making that possible? Otherwise, we get 90-minute rants.
Well, we get them because America seems to feed on those kinds of figures. I mean, there's something about these white men in their hubris, in their tough talk, in their, I'll kick your ass kind of mentality that resonates with people, like everyday people, that populist, figure. That's what, Donald Trump rolled right into the White House, and Elon Musk is, like you said, taking a page out of his playbook, but yet people tend to glom on to these figures. There's some yearning, and it's way too deep for me in this moment to try to explain it. We need some world-class psychologists, I guess, to help us understand what is it about us as Americans that we want to see more of these kinds of people. And the reason he stayed on for 90 minutes is because there's an appetite for what he was saying, and the appetite for him, because, if it wasn't entertaining, just like we know in news, if it's not getting the station ratings, they're not going to do it. So it's all about the corporate, bottom line. If shareholders make money, then it's good TV. If shareholders aren't making money, it's horrible TV. So there's something, we got to figure that out, because figures like that are very dangerous, and particularly when they have billions of dollars to back their danger. But they become these kind of bigger than life characters, and they get to do things that the everyday person, ordinary person, never, ever get to do. When we come forward, we're going to talk about the war, because now it looks like Israel is agreeing to protect civilians. Over 15,000 Palestinians have been killed to date. And the U.S. has been putting pressure on Israel, saying, before you resume your military attack, you've got to give us some guarantees that we will not see thousands and thousands of Palestinians, women and children in particular, killed the way we have witnessed over the last 6 to 8 weeks. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union, weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580, weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time, that's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities and sports figures, elected leaders and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube.
All right, Professor Smiley, there's some news out today that, one, Israel knew about the attack that was going to happen by Hamas, by some accounts, a year in advance, that they had a 40-page document that outlined the attack, but that they didn't take it seriously. They thought it was just aspirational. We're also learning today that Secretary Blinken has gotten a commitment from Israel to take more precautions to not kill innocent civilians, and that Israel has made it plain they are not going to maintain this temporary pause, that they're going to restart their military engagement. I think some folks thought this might have been the beginning of the end of this war, but it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, so, to begin, when October 7th happened, we heard the state of Israel say that this was their 9/11. And, I do find it ironic that, there are some who believe that the Bush administration had inside knowledge that some sort of attack was going to happen. So to see also that parallel being made is, I find, quite interesting, especially in a year where Netanyahu had some of his lowest favoritism by the state of Israel, right? If we remember earlier this year in 2023, there were thousands upon thousands of Israeli residents and citizens who were protesting in the streets against Netanyahu. And then October 7th comes, he kind of unifies and strengthens his power. So, not to go down a rabbit hole, but, maybe there is something deeper there. To your other point about the U.S. trying to continue to put pressure on the ceasefire, I think that's important. We want to see less people dying. The state of Israel has continued to highlight that if you are Palestinian, you could be a threat to them, right? That is the statements that they make. That is the actions that we see. So when they say that they're not going to hurt civilians, it reminds me of the film by Stanley Kubrick, Full Metal Jacket, where the soldier who is killing Vietnamese farmers says that if they run, they're Viet Cong. If they don't run, they're well-trained Viet Cong. So any person who is essentially killed in this fight can be made to be seen as a Hamas sympathizer or some type of insurgent or a terrorist, and Israel can make those claims. And the other thing I'll say is that, even if there is a continued ceasefire, that does not end the kind of daily brutalization that Palestinians have embarked for the last 75 years. It wasn't like it was all utopia October 7th and this is going on. In fact, the Human Rights Watch in 2022 said that, or rather the Human Rights Watch said that 2022 was one of the deadliest years for Palestinian children in the West Bank, right, being killed by IDF police and other settlers. And so what we want to see is not only a ceasefire, but we want to see Palestinians being treated as humans, dignity, rights, access to water, electricity, not having lands being dispossessed, and other sorts of daily checkpoints, and having to prove who you are through these different kind of police state tactics that are used on Palestinians there. So.
Yeah, it's obviously very, very complex, and the U.S. is not getting everything that it's clear that they would want to get out of Netanyahu. And part of that is, Eric, because Netanyahu has a problem. Some of the breaking news today is that they had this attack plan, this laid out 40-page document that pretty much, gave them a blueprint in how they were going to be attacked, point by point by point. And by some accounts, the Israeli government didn't take it seriously and obviously were not prepared. So there is some price to be paid by that government for failing to protect its citizens, particularly if they had the playbook of the terrorists. So how much of that is going to come into play when Netanyahu, he's got to decide, do I stop the attack or do I continue the attack, because I've got to make up for the fact that I let my guards down and I let my country be attacked when I had the playbook in front of me. Seems like he also is in a conundrum.
Yes, I mean, the protests that were leading up to October 7th by Israeli citizens calling for change were significant and robust. And what we know post October 7th is if this conflict were to end, that the Netanyahu administration would fall. The serious intelligence failures that occurred leading up to October 7th were significant, paralleling the failures that existed leading to 9/11 and a host of terrorist attacks that have occurred around the country. We see it in mass shootings here in the United States, missed moments, missed points of data that are typically ignored. And in this case, the ignoring of that information was catastrophic. We are now in a situation where thousands of Palestinians in the Gaza, civilians, primarily women and children, have been killed. Israeli hostages are being held. In fact, hostages are being held who are not Israeli. And new information is emerging around the rape of Israeli women. What is happening in that region is significant, not only to Palestinians and Israelis, but the implications of a broader confrontation across the region. Look, at the end of the day, what we should be holding are Kingian values, the values of Dr. Martin Luther King. There should be an end to the violence. There is no resolution to this issue in the midst of violence, and calling for the continuing humanitarian cessation of violence is critically important in this moment. Two, we have to recognize that there are people who are living within paramilitary impacted communities. They are not supporters of Hamas, right? They are living amongst Hamas and are vulnerable. There is no place for them to escape to flee. And we have to ensure that civilians are not targeted in the midst of this conflict. But there's a third piece that I think we should not ignore. It is this, that ultimately there needs to be a solution to this problem and to this conflict. And it is an immense, significant conflict. It is not merely between Israel and Palestinian territories. It's also a regional conflict. It is a conflict over Jerusalem that is driven by religion. And we need serious leadership in this moment globally, in that region, and here in the United States. We cannot allow civilians to be used as human shields by either side in the midst of this conflict. We have to stop the violence and continue to call for the cessation of that violence.
Well, Bernie Sanders, Dr. Smiley, is under fire from progressives on the left because he will not call for a ceasefire. What do you make of that? A lot of his supporters, folks who've been out there with him for years, are now very, very disappointed in him.
Yeah, and I joined those ranks. I think particularly younger millennials, Gen Zers, and other progressives have kind of looked towards Bernie Sanders in the last 8 years or so as kind of our guiding light in terms of American left, what we would call an American left. And so this is a misstep by him. I can't understand why calling for a ceasefire, which is essentially stop bombing people, stop killing people, would be controversial.
Well, I'll tell you what the pundits say, Professor. They say if a ceasefire only gives Hamas an opportunity to refuel, get reorganized, and presents a danger to Israel. That's the counter argument why you can't have a ceasefire with terrorists, because there's you're just giving them more room and more opportunity to come back stronger.
Yeah, sure, you can make that claim. You know what I mean? And you can also make the claim that bombing hospitals is a really egregious international human rights violation, and so we should call that out. But refueling, reorganizing, again, like I said earlier, the state of Israel has shown very clearly that they are very much about getting this land. And we see that constantly in the West Bank with land dispossession and taking over people's homes, and the continued growing of what they would call Israel and eliminating the West Bank. And we're seeing this in Gaza. So, I would say to Bernie, if I had that opportunity, that it's a misstep. He kind of needs to recalibrate. He should look at what his traditional constituents are saying, and he can grow from it. He can move away from it. I think one thing that we've seen in kind of more recent years is you can't critique the people that you like. And that's totally not true. You can absolutely critique Bernie Sanders in this moment and say, Mr. Sanders, we would love for you to reevaluate your stance on the ceasefire, look at the data, look at what's going on, and come to a new position. And I think Bernie Sanders is not the kind of obtuse, or at least I like to think that he's not the obtuse or belligerent type of character that is Elon Musk or Donald Trump. So we'll see where he goes moving forward. But yeah, that would be my take on this.
We are out of time. Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you so much, Dr. Smiley. I will see you guys the next time. Stay with us. More on KBLA Talk 1580.
We boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.